the intro music. Yeah! Woohoo!
Hey everybody, welcome back today. Taking a look at Armadas, and actually this is going to be a great video for those of you who are not necessarily, used to Armadas. Maybe it's a new concept for you. So we're going over some of the basics, but the primary thing I want to do in this video is show you how exactly loot distribution works in this system. Now, you do need to get this building to even begin Armadas, and you build this at level 23, FYI, for those new players watching the channel. I will be including this in our new player guide video playlist that we have, so check that out if you haven't already. But this also is going to be big because I know a lot of people I run into all the time don't understand how the loot mechanic actually works in Armadas, whether it's a solo mechanic or greater group mechanic. Now we'll go ahead and say that in this video we won't get terribly deep into certain things like bonuses, like the Defiant bonus for edicts and how exactly to calculate that math. We'll reference it a little bit here with the graphic, but we will talk about the basics of Armadas in terms of how you can get the best payout for you and your alliance, because, well, for the most part we'll be talking about the alliance group ones, but we will also mention solos because I actually was doing solos yesterday, and it's actually become something that many of us do quite regularly. Ignore the Katinga's crew. I just threw a Riker Bev on there because I was doing both Dominion and Borg, and I was just trying to cycle through as quickly as possible and playing with the new Pylum. Even though it's tier 2, it's now my strongest Armada ship, and I absolutely love it. Video on the Pylum coming relatively soon. But just to get into it, real quick, join the Discord, because this is actually where myself and John Connor have been talking and posting a lot of this type of content, including something like this right here. So what is on your screen currently is a spreadsheet that he has made where he uses this to calculate how much loot you're getting through, say, a solo Armada, which is what this covers. But the main part of what I want you to focus on is on the left side of your screen. We're going to talk about how you actually calculate credit loot and how it gets paid out per ship. This is very important, because especially for a solo Armada, this is how you would calculate how many edicts you're getting. And if you get a really small number, well, things can kind of get rounded down, and that becomes kind of problematic for people. Because remember, you can't get half of something. You can only get something or not get something, and that's how it pays out in the game. They don't pay you out, 3.5 edicts. You would then get 4. Or if you're lower than that, you maybe only get 3. So yay for rounding. But let's go through this. For one, those who don't remember who John is, just a real quick little filler. John is the one who I worked with to help create this tool. If you haven't used it already, it is the sheet that shows you the efficiency of scrapping ships. The 26s, 28s, 32s, and 34s. We'll have one that I make for the 4-star ships, but I've been pushing down a little bit just because there's so many other things to go through in this game. You can reach both of us and find all this material in my Discord. Make sure you apply the roles to yourself. I've noticed that's an issue for some people. Like, they'll say, hey Rev, I can't find anything in your Discord, and well, this isn't meant to sound rude, by the way. It really comes down to not reading the rules and help, because there are ways to apply the roles to you yourself. That way you don't have to worry about not seeing something, because let's be honest, if you go to a Discord but what you're looking for isn't there, then you feel like, well, that didn't help at all. So I want to make sure everybody's getting the help that they need. And if I come over here on the screen, transition, here is my Discord. In fact, let me make it a little bit bigger and better for you. So right here in the rules and help, you can just click on one of these buttons and it will apply your role. So if you're saying, hey Rev, I don't see the Star Trek channels where everything is pinned, click the button. You'll scroll down here and then look, brand new STFC general channel, come up here, check the pins. And for example, there you can find, oh, that's the contacting, I'm sorry. Yeah, how to contact Scopely, but also, well, here's the bold defense document we just used in the last video. So check that out. It is super useful. Anyway, back to this. Let's start talking about Armadas and crediting out. How does that work? Simple answer. We'll put another image on the screen. Simple answer is the power of the ships. Take them all together and then divide by how much loot there is and then percentage of it. So for example, you'll see in this example, you'll have a Northcutt, a Valk, and 3 Valdors. Sorry, there's names with the Northcutt to John's spreadsheet here. Now, what you'll notice is the Northcutt makes up 60% of the power in this particular Armada, which would then translate to you can see the loot per ship, and that's how it gets broken down. So if you've ever heard myself or another content creator or one of your alliance leaders have said like, hey, don't bring an Enterprise to an Eclipse Armada. And you're like, well, why does it matter what ship I'm bringing? Loot is loot. Well, no, loot is not loot because the power can greatly offset it. So for example, if I brought my Defiant, well, my Defiant is, you can see here, 10 million power. If I brought my Defiant to an Eclipse, well, that grossly throws it off because if you remember, well, you have Stellas are like what, 1.5 million. So the power distribution now gets wildly thrown off. And this doesn't talk about, by the way, that the Stella has that research and all the bonuses versus Eclipse Armadas. Like you would never really want to use another ship going against a regular Eclipse Armada. You come in here like my alliance is doing right now, and you would bring Stellas because they're going to be appropriately powered. Everything's going to be evenly distributed. And then, you know, maybe you're lucky and you're the one that gets the box, or the person who launches the Armada gets the extra box for the extra loot. Actually, while I'm doing this, I'm going to send one out right now because, well, these mods are important. So we'll just go ahead and do it while we're making a video. But as you can see here in the picture, we're going to talk about distribution being sorted by power. So you don't want to bring an overwhelmingly strong ship unless it's needed. But that's actually where you can find some value. So for example, if you're listening to this, one of the things that came out recently were these new Armadas, not the exchange Armadas, the expansion cubes. And you were required in an expansion cube Armada to take your, you're expected to take your new Talios and go against these big ones that just came out. I'm actually going to a system I've actually visited. Now, expansion cubes have not been super popular, but they're all connected to the regular solo Armadas. Now, the meta, though, has really become, because we know how loot distribution works and people didn't really have their Talios leveled up, what they would do is instead of hitting a smaller Armada with a little amount of loot, they would actually take and go against the biggest expansion cube available and then have a super whale carry them. Because if you're dividing 20,000 loot, you're going to get more than you're dividing 500 loot, even though there's a huge discrepancy in power. So what they would do is, in this case, you'd have a super whale carry you through the largest possible Armada, and even though they would take a big portion of the loot, it would get distributed even with the power difference of you still getting a decent amount. So we could actually just do some quick calculations there. If you had an 80 million power ship and everybody else had Talioses, well, let's just say that everybody else's Talios was 3 million power. So that means 15 million power between them, and then you add in an 85 million power ship. Well, that now is 100 million. So that means that the whale is going to get 85% of the loot, but 85% of 20,000 is a heck of a lot better than you getting 20% of 500. So just from a mathematical standpoint, there are some values there that you can take advantage of depending on what you have available to you in your alliance. So now that you can see loot distribution, and I'm assuming many of you kind of knew this, but maybe many of you didn't. If you understand how loot distribution works from the basic sense, you can now build around that when we're talking about research for certain Armadas, or maybe certain Armadas have different distribution, or maybe we're running the loot crews with Franklins and Jayla. And now we can start to calculate how this actually works. But I will add that if you personally need help with this, which sometimes people do, you know what you can do? You can hit myself up or John Connor, one of our many German friends, up on the Discord channel. So again, when we're looking at these type of Armadas, when it comes to payout, we really want to pay attention to the power that they provide. So if I go into here and I take a look at a Borg sphere, I'm actually going to be paying attention to that when it comes to these as well, because as you can see in the first screenshot I shared with you, it does affect loot distribution as a whole. So this right here is an example of your edicts and your regular payouts, how much you're going to get and what things end up rounding to. That is important because people come to me like, hey Rev, this isn't getting as much as I expected. Why? Right here is why. This is why knowing and understanding the Star Trek Fleet Command math can be so important to your gameplay, because how things calculate and then round up and round down is something that, well, we're probably still gonna get asked even after this video. But hopefully this gives you a basic understanding of how Armada loot is calculated and distributed to players and even yourself in solos. But if you have more questions, as always, reach out to me on the Discord or here in the YouTube comments, because we do try to answer as many comments as possible. Love going through the comments. Even hit me up on Twitter, Facebook, all those places. So now, if you're a new player or a vet player, you understand how loot distribution works from the basic sense. Live long and prosper. Stay safe for the Space Cowboys. Deuces, that's me. Catch you on a brand new arc starting tomorrow. If you caught this the day this video came out. Bye.
An even better outro than the intro. For the Empire and glory to your house.